Warning: the following episode may contain images too frightful for some. Viewer discretion is advised. Halloween. It's my favorite time of the year since I was a little kid. It's a time when we can be very creative, but it's also a time when we have to face our own fears as well. And with that, we can laugh it off. For some, it's a little too scary. For me, it's pretty rad. Our first story here is going to be something very topical, especially on the internet within the last year itself. And I'm not going to be talking about clowns, or killer clowns. We already have enough clowns to deal with in real life. Our first story is about the Mandela Effect. When did Nelson Mandela die? Now, some of you will point towards stories you saw in the news of 2013. Other people much older will say he's already been dead, long dead, 20, 30 years ago. Now, this isn't a conspiracy theory I'm talking about. This is something deeply psychological that is coming down to even discussions about quantum theory. I'm talking about parallel dimensions. And with parallel dimensions, we're talking about the multiverse. Now, what was originally fiction, especially in comic books, now is being opened up to actual theory right now, being debated by current scientists and philosophers alike. Now, the popular idea with the multiverse is that there are many infinite universes constantly being created around our present timeline. Now, some have had stories they've told about going forward and backward in time, or traveling to a whole different universe with different people, even different creatures existing. Now, those are just stories, but if you want to have some fun during this Halloween season, next time you get together with some friends and family, have everyone get a piece of paper out and something to write with. And then mention any one of these things, see what they write down, and see if it's all unison or people remember something a little more different. Remember a book about a family of bears when you were a kid? The Berenstain Bears? Was it Berenstein or Berenstain? I'm not a fan of peanut butter, but if you were, did you have some of that Jiffy peanut butter? Or was it Jif peanut butter? If you've gone to a mall, you must have gone to a J.C. Penney. But which spelling was it? I'm not too sure. Is it Fruit Loops or Fruit Loops? Looney Tunes or Looney Tunes? Oscar Mayer or Oscar Mayer? Mr. Rogers, did he sing, "Is it a beautiful day in the neighborhood?" Or "A beautiful day in this neighborhood"? Rom-com fans, is it Sex and the City? Or is it Sex in the City? Is it Life is like a box of chocolates? Or Life was like a box of chocolates? Did Mr. Moneybags from Monopoly have a monocle? And one of my favorite songs from Queen, "We Are the Champions." Did it end with "We Are the Champions"? Or did it end with "Of the World"? Now, there's many more added to the list and added every single day, and you might discover a few yourself. But it still begs the question, are our memories fading and just trying to fill in the blank? Or are we truly moving between all the parallel universes that surround us? I'm a big fan of scary stories ever since I was a little kid, including Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was my personal favorite book series. I loved stories, I loved horror movies, and because of the power of the internet and the power of YouTube, now I've been able to access even more stories. Now, as a group of YouTubers I like to listen to while I'm either working or even going to bed, and they tell some of the spookiest stories I've ever heard in my life. Now, some do tell fictional stories that are written by modern day writers or older writers as well, but some of my personal favorites are the true stories. The stories told by other people from their own personal lives through Reddit. And some have taken videos, taken audio clips, and even pictures. Everything from UFOs to ghosts, from stalkers to serial killers. And here are my top favorites. If you're looking for some really creepy Reddit stories, whether about the paranormal or in the real world, you want to check out Lazy Masquerade. He's got a soft, sweet voice that'll lull you to sleep, but the things he tells you is creepy. Another favorite of mine, Rob Dyke, who's known for Seriously Strange and a few other YouTube shows that he does off his channel, but he does profiles on serial killers and top 10s that are absolutely terrifying. And then working alongside with him is Kaylee Elise, who has her own channel. She's a little bit funnier, a little bit quirkier, and very entertaining, and still tells some creepy stuff. And that's Mikey Chan here from Beyond Science, who usually does about like a top 5, top 7, and lately working with his brother, he'll do a single subject focus. But it's pretty interesting the questions he brings forth, and one of the things he talks about is the Mandela Effect that we talked about earlier, so check out Beyond Science. One of my top 5s actually has no narration to it, and that is the Dark 5. Dark 5's got some great topics, top 5 topics, with music and imagery to boot with it. If you're looking for a little bit more of a tongue-in-cheek with some really bad jokes to it, which I still laugh at, I recommend Strange Mysteries, which has been pumping out videos very fast within the last few months, so check out Strange Mysteries. Another one I enjoy with some awesome stories, everything from aliens to giants, would definitely be Paranormal Junkie. The voice kind of reminds me a little bit of Casey Kasem a little bit in its own way, but it's very informative and entertaining when it comes to talking about folklore. Now, if you're looking for some awesome UFO channels, I have to recommend Secure Team 10. They're putting up a lot of user and new footage come up all the time, talking about up-to-date topics, not even just about UFOs, but space news that's coming out, especially from NASA as well, and other astrophysicists speaking out in the news. It's a great source of information, and also very thought-provoking. Now, I have quite the list of YouTubers I'm subscribed to, but there may be some in the same category of horror, scare stories, paranormal, anything like that. If you want to recommend something to me, definitely put it down in the comments below, please, because I'd love to check them out. Next up, I like going to haunted houses as much as the next person, but I also like places which have history, and me being a big history buff, I love going to museums. So, in the United States, we have a bunch of really creepy museums you can go to. So here's an awesome list of those. If you're in the Los Angeles area, or even in New Orleans, if you see the giant skull, that could only be one thing, and that is the Museum of Death. The Museum of Death is a host to a pantheon of items from murderers, serial killers, and cults as well, including the head of Henry Landru, the Blue Beard of Paris, and also belongings from the Manson family. So definitely check out the Museum of Death. And if you're like me, a big fan of Neil Gaiman's American Gods, you'll appreciate this next place, the House on the Rock. Located in Deer Shelter Rock, Wisconsin, the House on the Rock looks beautiful on the outside with its luscious garden and beautiful view of the hills. It's what's inside that's very uncomfortable. We're talking about mannequins, small statues, strange collectibles you can't even find in antique stores, including a symphony of instruments, a carousel made of half-human, half-animal hybrids, and of course a 200-foot sea monster. So if you're looking for something a little bit in the oddities realm, I recommend the House on the Rock. Where some are terrified by clowns, I'm personally terrified by dolls. Such movies like Puppet Master, Child's Play, and Dead Silence absolutely terrify me. It's the stories of real dolls you can go see and visit, such as the Doll Island of Mexico, and even Robert the Doll, that really spook me down into my soul. Let me tell you about the Vent Museum. If you ever visit Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, I recommend stop by the Vent Haven Museum if you want to feel a little eerie. And by eerie, I mean walking through a museum of over 1,600 dolls, and with all those glossy eyes glaring back, you kind of start to wonder, are you looking at them, or are they looking at you? And speaking of dolls, many of you are now familiar with Annabelle, and you can visit her as well, along with other creepy real objects taken from paranormal investigations. Of course, I am talking about the Museum of the Occult. Museum of the Occult, located in Monroe, Connecticut, is where you can find Annabelle the doll, along with a host of other items collected by Anne and Lorraine Warren, who have become popular with such films as The Conjuring series and Annabelle, and with such stories both written and in film form, you can see the real-life objects, the memorabilia collected by the Warrens from their paranormal investigations, anything including possessed toys, satanic altars, and even vampire coffins. When you leave the Museum of the Occult, you may not be taking along any of those items with you, but you may be taking something else that's been attached to them for a very long time. Speaking of horror movies, this is one exhibit you don't want to miss if you're up in the Seattle, Washington area. At the EMP Museum right now is an exhibit called Can't Look Away. It's a collection of memorabilia from horror films such as the Alien franchise, Friday the 13th, and even Critters. So if you're a big fan of the horror movie genre, I recommend definitely checking that out to being something so close that felt so real for so long. One of my all-time favorite horror films is The House of Wax with Vincent Price. And if you want to visit a very morbid house of wax, there is an exhibit located in Brooklyn, New York at the Morbid Anatomy Museum. As it says in its name, the Morbid Anatomy Museum is nothing more than morbid, playing host to a variety of curiosities, both beautiful and very strange as well, including collections of everything from spirit photography to dead animals. You'll be wondering if you stepped out of the city and walked into your own chamber of horrors. Now, anatomy may sound boring to some of you, but trust me, it's not if you ever visit the National Museum of Health and Medicine. This museum, located in Washington, D.C., was actually founded during the Civil War by the United States Army. Specimens can be found here, including Abraham Lincoln's skull, and they even have their own exhibit dedicated to hairballs. Even though your brain may absorb a lot of important and interesting information, this place is definitely not one for weak stomachs. And speaking of weak stomachs, I saved the best for last, and that is the Mutter Museum. Down in Philadelphia, the Mutter Museum plays the largest host to some of the macabre that you could ever see, and a lot of them even for scientific purposes. Such things you'll find are books bound in human skin, liver of conjoined twins Chang and Ang, the soap lady, two-headed babies, a wall of diseased eyes, and also part of Albert Einstein's brain. While some are out there actually trying to hunt zombies, the rest of us are going to party with them. And that's what's going to be happening Saturday, October 22nd, down in downtown Providence on Snow Street. It's going to be the 10th annual Zombie Night. Started out with Reverend Almighty. What started as normally a march through the city became a giant block party of roughly over 5,000 people in attendance. What's special about this year versus any other year is that there's actually going to be an official wedding. So it's going to be a real zombie wedding. This is the bride and groom here, Carla and Rich. They will be tying the knot with leftover small intestines after gorging upon the human populace of downtown Providence. That will be kicking off around 8:30. And of course, right after that and throughout the night, they're going to have the Boolesque, a horror-themed burlesque featuring Betty Sue Taylor, Dot Mitzvah, Kurt Fowle, and Maiden X. Now, if you've never been to this event, this is welcome to all, especially those that like to get dressed up, because the ones with the most unique and creative costumes will win $666. Another reason to be showing up right at the start around 8 o'clock is you get your wristband for free between 8 and 10 p.m. You get your free wristband, and throughout the night you can go in and out. So when you want to dine on some brains, you can go do that, return, drink, and dance the night away, as it will be going to 3 in the morning. And Zombie Night in Providence is always about a good time, so all douchebags will be eaten on sight. So bring the good spirits and leave the nasty ones in their grave. Thank you again for joining us on this special spooky edition of Rad News. As a big thank you, I'm sending you off here with a tribute to all those who really work hard on their costumes. I'm talking about going back to the early 1900s when trick-or-treating was starting to kick off around this nation. So everyone didn't have a store to go to buy their costumes. So this one's called Retroween. Take it away.